This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
Hello listeners out there, this is another installment of The Discourse. Today we are going to have a fantastic topic, the JAPA phenomenon. I'm sure you're having a great Sunday. It's very sunny out there, fantastic weather. Last week it was inclement, but we had a very good guest, if I may say, Davida Echetabu. In fact, I've had so many calls, so much of a feedback after Davida attended the discourse last week, and I've promised that I'll bring her back to the discourse the last quarter of this year, just to continue that conversation around wealth creation and man. And I asked Davida, are we all gold diggers? She said yes. So we're going to expand on that conversation when we get to the last quarter of this year. Today we have a fantastic topic, the JAPA phenomenon. Is the JAPA phenomenon a curse for Nigeria or a blessing? That we are going to discuss, that we are going to x-ray, that we are going to flesh up after this break.
This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
Thank you, listeners, and thank you for staying there. Like I said, today is going to be the JAPA phenomenon. What a topic. During the week, there was a big debate. Should we push it forward to next week or should we take it this Sunday? And the school of thought that said, no, it's very topical. We should push it for this Sunday won. And therefore, we are going to discuss the JAPA phenomenon. And is it really a blessing for Nigeria or is it a curse? My guest today is Charles Gbolahan Olojede. I'm going to talk about Charles because I'm very sure most of you are familiar with that voice, but today you're going to see a different dimension of Charles. Charles is a resourceful corporate executive with work experience spanning over 30 years. Charles is a consummate finance professional with an extensive exposure to marketing, operations, and management at various levels. His industry exposure, in fact, cuts across all professional services, which includes banking, advisory services, media, education, healthcare, oil and gas, and telecoms. Charles is a graduate of the prestigious Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, an associate of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. He is known to be a man with adequate dose of intellectual curiosity and understands what being contemporarily relevant is. Charles, why do they say you are university? But I keep hearing every time they say OAU, they say it's prestigious. What is it about OAU? And I've met a couple of your OAU guys, quite confident people, and they bounce around. And what is it about OAU?
They talk about Great Ife, you know. Great Ife, the first thing that will stun anybody who is visiting that school for the first time is that it is distinctly designed. In its days, it was simply the most beautiful campus in Nigeria, not just in Nigeria. Some people will even say in Africa. The architectural design was masterpiece all over the place. When you see some of those faculties, the way they are designed, the way they are built. Mm-hmm. In fact, the greenery that welcomes you into OAU, I want to believe it is still like that. When you enter there, you're wondering whether this is still part of Nigeria.
Wow.
Yeah. The greenery welcomes you, then you travel. For those of them, for students who had motorbikes in those days, the entrance into OAU gives you the pleasure of gassing down on those motorbikes.
You just throttle down.
You just throttle down.
Wow.
Which you may not be able to do, say, in the University of Lagos because of the size.
I was wishing you don't mention University of Lagos.
Of course, Lagos has its own beauty, but Great Ife is special in some way.
Fantastic. You know, by the way, I've been to Ife and I've been to the OAU. I attest to what you're saying. What I saw was incredible. And it reminded me of what the Japanese says. You know, they say Yok Shinai Yokangai, which is good product. Good thinking, good product, isn't it? So I saw good thinking there and then good product. Now, listeners, we're talking about the JAPA syndrome today. What a topic. If you are overseas, you are in Nigeria, you are in diaspora already, are you a beneficiary of this syndrome? Please get in touch with us today. We would like to know your experiences. Has it been good? Has it been relatively neither here or there? Has it been nasty? And for those who are about to embark or thinking about it, can you please reach us? We want it to be interactive as much as possible. Today, you can reach us on our WhatsApp number 09092172973. I take it again, 09092172973, or at Classic FM 97.3. We want it to be interactive as much as possible, because I know that thousands and thousands, either you are direct participant in the
JAPA
culture,
syndrome,
or you are a parent or you are a relative who would like you to contribute. Let me take that number again, 09092192973 at Classic FM at 97.3. Just to put it in context, Charles, this JAPA syndrome. Listen, there are 8 top business risk, if you like, factors in Nigeria. The number 1 is lack of critical physical infrastructure.
Correct.
Number 2 is fiscal and monetary risk, which include macroeconomic shocks, financial sector instability. Number 3 is strategy and governance issues, which includes reactive risk management culture, inadequate frameworks. Number 4, insecurity and terrorism. Number 5, the JAPA syndrome. And which is voluntary migration of top talents and top and middle level talents. Number 6, undulating foreign exchange regime. 7, business continuity and supply chain disruptions. And 8, cybersecurity issues. You can see 4 years ago, the JAPA syndrome was nowhere near this list. Today is number 5. It's incredible, isn't it?
Unbelievable how far we have come as far as JAPA syndrome is concerned. I think we need to put it in the right context, because JAPA is also not every travel. People have been leaving the country, for several years, but leaving with the intention of probably not coming back or staying for a long time there. Literally, people running away from something, from their home country. And the stratum of the society that is most affected is also another issue. So you have the middle class, largely, also skilled labor. Skilled labor in areas where we do not even have enough. So IT skilled labor. We have healthcare, skilled labor, living, and then several others, from bankers to oil and gas people to everybody, living for various reasons. But whatever reason comes to mind is something that has become a topical issue. Let
me interject there, Charles. And this is very important that you put it into context so people understand the magnitude of this conversation and what we are being faced with. Now, let me bring you back a bit. The word JAPA is now prevalent in the Nigerian discourse. In fact, it has a place now in our dictionary. So this word JAPA, what does it mean really? And I want, in the context of the Nigerian major 3 languages, if you can. I don't know how much of Hausa you know, and how much of Igbo you know.
I probably will be able to say it in Yoruba.
Okay.
JAPA, if someone is holding your hand,
okay,
but you're saying, I need to leave, so you wriggle your hand and you swing the person away from the grip, from the grasp. That is JAPA.
Wow.
Yeah, that is what JAPA is from a Yoruba context.
Perspective.
Yeah, so these people who are leaving is as if they are saying, look, something is trying to hold us back here, but we need to be unleashed. We need to leave. So they just, drop the hand off or wriggle off the grasp and go. That is JAPA literally,
So that's the meaning in
Yoruba.
Because I was deliberate. I wanted you to explain what the meaning, because not everybody who is listening to us now know the real meaning of JAPA.
Yeah.
Somebody sent me a text. He said in the context of the Igbo language, it means osandu. It means the person is literally running for life. Like you said, something is holding you down. And have a strong grip of it. You're able to wriggle out and you run for life. But
exactly,
it's a syndrome. I'm happy you are able to. So, listeners, we are here with Charles Gbolahan Olojede. He will do a justice to this great topic. Today, again, you can reach us at 909217297 at Classic FM 973. I would, in fact, if I can get an interpretation of what this Japa means in Hausa or even in BB or Efik language, I appreciate that, so that we put it into context. People who have not heard it before or not familiar with it would know. Now, linguistically speaking, Charles, is Japa a verb or a noun? Please elaborate. Before you elaborate, I give you a story. There's this guy from my village. He's quite notorious because he comes from very rich parents. And the name of the family is quite prominent in that area. So he literally bullies everybody around. So he had this gardener he was dealing with, so he was always shouting at this gardener. So at a point, the gardener wouldn't have any more of it, and he said, "You know what? I am a noun. I thank God I'm a noun, and you are an adjective." Because
an adjective.
the gardener's name is, Chijoke Amade. While this man is a big name, from that area, Chief Nana Ukebu's son. So the gardener is saying that I am a noun. I am just Chijoka Amadi, so I'm a noun on my own. But you are the son of Nandu Kebu, so meaning that your word used to qualify a noun. But in the context of that, so linguistically speaking, is Jakwa really a verb, an adjective, or a noun? If you can just give a context.
I think it has become both. In the sense that Jakpa has become an ism. So there's a concept called Jakpa.
Okay.
And in that sense, it will be a noun. But then, there's the verb side of it when people say, I want to Jakpa.
Wow.
So I want to Jakpa, in that context, that is a verb. An action word. You want to Jakpa. In fact, I have seen people put ED behind it. Jakpad.
Okay.
When trying to write it in an English sentence. So, when you're referring to it in the past, say jackpot. Yes, jackpot.
So you've done it.
You've done it. So it's both a verb and also could be a noun. A noun from the context of the fact that it has become an ism, a concept, which is even probably why we are discussing it.
Yeah, fantastic. Just so that you know how big this, some kind of expertise have grown out of this. There is a new high-paying, high-prestige job in town now. It is called the Emigration expert. Have you heard about it, and what is it about?
There's a lot of them.
Yes.
In fact, from time to time, I even get unsolicited messages from people who think I might want to Jakpa, and they are ready to offer services towards that. What kind of Jakpa do you want to do school to go out of there using school? Do you want to do proper migration? You want a passport? You want to do, there's an investment type too, where if you have enough money, they can give you, it can arrange for you.
So even for those that demographic, that is considered Jakpa even.
It is still
through investment, isn't it?
Through investment.
Through investment.
Through investment. And there are people, because there's also a shade of Jakpa that is a bit different from the popular one, and that is people who they would rather be in Nigeria, but they think having a second passport has become important.
Okay.
So those people will do whatever is required, have that passport, but the condition may require that they go to that place from time to time, but they will still be based in Nigeria, but they will be holding that.
Okay.
That is interesting, because what those people are saying is that if my country becomes so unlivable, I have another place I can go to. So it's still a form of Jakpa, but it's not the central theme when people say Jakpa.
Okay, thank you, Charles. I bring you back now to what you were trying to explain earlier. And that's this Jakpa thing, is it good or bad? The wave is taking away skilled labor and knowledgeable human capital from Nigeria. So is it good or bad? Or we have 30 minutes or more. We'll talk about how good it is and how much it has hurt us. But in the beginning of this conversation, is it good or bad? How do you feel about it? And I'm not just saying you judge it. I'm saying, what is the feeling out there? But I mean, from expert point of view.
It is It is bad because it is unstructured.
Okay.
Bad because there are nothing. We have not even looked at it from the perspective of dissecting, analyzing it properly, and thinking of how to make the best of it. Therefore, people are just living. I remember hearing a minister of health who says, no, they let them go. They can all go. You know, we are producing a lot of them. But the more you're producing, the more of them are also going out right there. So it shows that we're losing skilled labor. And we're having a lot of discontented Nigerians. And the more people are leaving, the more they are encouraging others to also leave. So that is not a good thing for the country.
Okay.
But it could also be a good thing if it is properly analyzed, harnessed, and deployed properly in a structured manner. It could be something really positive for this country.
Fantastic. I don't know whether I should ask you this before our break, because we're going to have a very short break before I come back to you, or I just go ahead. But again, like I said, listeners, I want you to, what do you think? What's your take on this JAPA phenomenon, on this JAPA syndrome? You know, you can reach us on 09092172973 or at Twitter at Classic FM 97.3. So this kind of migration, Charles, according to visa information, because I read up a bit about this, it has never happened before in the volumes it has taken place in the last 2 years. So why these volumes? You know, because in the last 2 years, the numbers I see are incredible.
Yes. It started, gradually. Then it took up speed over time. In the early days, you have a few people here and there who are tired of the environment. They think, okay, let me go out there and have. Most of them were doing masters then.
Okay.
But when they do the masters and finish the masters, there was a certain hope that, after I finish my masters, I'll be able to get a job. Those jobs were not actually readily there. So they find themselves staying back, taking up. Some will even do a second master. Some will start a PhD. Some will just continue to work for a while. While they stay there, they go ahead and start encouraging people. And then you start having issues around people who are married, spouses, people who have children. So initially, when they wanted to go, they were thinking of themselves alone. But they found out that the visa allows them to also bring wife and bring children. So they go back home, they bring the wife, they bring the children over there. And because friends, relatives, everybody see what is going on. Oh, this person has left, he has jackpot. They also want to do the same thing because they have similar dissatisfaction with the society. High unemployment rate is one of the big problems. And they believe that, look, at least even if I'm not, even if I'm underemployed out there, I will still be well paid based on the fact that I'm putting in the hours.
Charles, you hold it there, but that brings me to a question, because I just saw on the screen now from O.J. Lawson. He's saying, Ken, JAPA has become a very lucrative enterprise as there is desperation that drives high demand. I hear it could cost as much as 7 million naira to JAPA to the UK to become a caregiver. Just relating to what you said. So, in context of cost-benefit analysis, imagine somebody spending 7 million to JAPA to the UK only to become a caregiver. So you apply to become a caregiver with 7 million. How do you contextualize this?
Because for them, there are a few of them who do not have the full picture anyway. I mean, I have a cousin of mine. We were chatting one day, and he told me that after he finished his masters, there was a day he sat down at the train station and wept. Why did he cry? Because the picture that was painted for him about JAPA was not what he found on ground in the UK. The expectation had been that, I have this further education, the jobs are there, I just get the jobs and I start to run. But no, he found out that after the masters, he still, if he wants to stay on, he will either go and take another masters or healthcare. Healthcare, the healthcare industry is very huge, it's very large in this country. So after you have BSc in Nigeria, you say you didn't have a job, so you went to the UK, you added a master, you still do not have the job. But when you take up these healthcare jobs, you make money. The money can pay your bill. You can have a little bit to even send back home. Okay. And that is enough attraction for some people. And then they also know that if you can weather it for a period, maybe like 4 or 5 years, eventually you will settle in. If you're doing the right thing, you will settle in and be able to get the kind of job that you truly desire. But in those early years, it doesn't come. They're just satisfied with being able to make some money, pay their bills, and have a little bit that they can send over.
So I consider those early years as prelim, what we call prelim.
Remember? Yeah,
what we call prelim, those days before you got into university. But listen, if you're 40 years old and you do a prelim of another 5 years, you're 45.
Yeah, 45.
Considering the life expectancy of the average Nigerian, at 45, you are still doing prelim for you just to settle down.
For you to settle down.
I think somebody needs to explain this. I mean, give context to it. But we'll talk about structure. We'll talk about how we can benefit from it. Because, listen, for people to japa, like you explained it in the Yoruba language, and the Igbo language says it's Osando. Something must be chasing you. And
Correct.
That thing is chasing you hard. We'll go on a break, listeners. Please hang in there. When we come back, we'll discuss whether this is a really greener pasture out there or is something that we don't quite understand as a phenomenon. Please stay in there.
This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
Thank you very much for hanging in there. I want to believe that it's such a topic that, in fact, Charles, I like to lead with proverbs. People say when the eye starts crying, the nose will start leaking.
Definitely.
If it has not happened to you, as in you've not left because of circumstances, you may have one or two other people you know. You may even have a wife who has decided that, listen, this is my decision, and that goes against the husband's, the spouse's decision. And you know what that can do to frictions in marriages. But we'll come to that. Let me take you to outside of Nigeria, our jurisdiction, so that people, listeners, will know that this JAPA thing, or as a phenomenon, is not just a Nigerian thing. There are other climes. If you take India, for example, how does the Nigerian JAPA experience compared to the Indian experience? And let me give you these numbers. The Indian experience and situation, especially in terms of the benefits and loss. In 2022, India's inward remittances hit $108 billion.
That is humongous.
$108 billion.
I'm imagining what that would be in Naira.
I'm coming because we're going to do the math. For Nigeria, the peak was, and that was in 2018. That's our peak ever. It hit $24 billion, which is India's remittances was 4.5 or 4.6 times higher than the Nigerian remittances at $24 billion. So at 750 naira per dollar, the 24 billion Nigeria earned comes to 18 trillion naira. So, and let me repeat for listeners in case you missed that, 18 trillion naira. That is about 2 times the retained revenue of the federal government of Nigeria for 2022-2023 budget season.
Yes.
What do you say to this? Do you see now how important this
is? There's a huge economics around the JAPA, which is the more reason why we need to build a structure. And just imagine that $24 billion, which was the highest remittance, it peaked around, I think, 2018, thereabout. The equivalent in today's money is about 18 trillion naira. 18 trillion naira is about 2 times the revenue of the federal government of Nigeria for this year, the retained of the federal government revenue for this year. So what that says to me, I'm a finance person, is to say, look, if I'm not paying attention to something, but it is still possible for me to earn 18 trillion from it, how about I pay a little attention to it? Okay. Because the oil that I pay attention to, the taxi that I pay attention to, all the other sources of revenue that I pay attention to are not even producing more than half.
Not anywhere near half.
Of what this other product is giving me. So I must begin to see it as, contextualize it as a possible revenue source. Maybe that will drive how I allocate resources and I put brain power behind coming up with an appropriate structure that could help us milk that opportunity. Recently, maybe about a month ago, there was this policy that was, being bounced around there about how, not policy, it was actually a bill somebody wanted Nigerians to be able to hold medical doctors back for 5 years so that they cannot JAPA after that. Now, of course, a lot of people found that very strange. I was vehemently against it because I thought it was an attempt to find a microwave oven solution to a very deep matter. Here is what the problem was. The problem was that Nigerians have observed that, look, we're producing healthcare professionals and we're producing them very cheaply.
Yeah. So
essentially, they are not paying for that training. They're not paying much for that training. So the government is the one doing the payment. But the government is not able to reap the fruit of its labor. After producing them, these people will now leave. So government is saying, what can I do? That was what gave birth to that bill. But that was a wrong solution to a genuine problem that was on the table. If we look closely at those things, we can, who says we can't produce doctors and export? We can be deliberate about it. We can be deliberate, and that is how to make money from it, rather than the current loss situation that we have put ourselves as far as healthcare workers are concerned.
Fantastic. I still stay with India, Charles. You know, today, 25 CEOs of the S&P 500. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Companies companies are of Indian descent. Correct. 25 CEOs out of 500. Now, the figure will continue to increase because they are deliberate. You know what the MIT in India, the institution there was put for. Is there anything we can do in terms of deliberate government policies to also put more Nigerians on a pedestal to compete? Why I say this, in the Indian situation, if you look at the demographics of the Indians that you find in the Gulf, say in Dubai, these are the lower rung of their society. So there's a deliberate policy in India because the cost of traveling from India to the Gulf is about $300. So that lower rung of their demographics can afford it. So they skew it in such a way that those people go to the Gulf. Now, the middle level ones who have better skills, they make sure they go to the UK and Europe. Yes. That is why when you arrive at Heathrow, the first person you see at the counter, immigration, is India. So they are gatekeepers. So they produce gatekeepers for Europe, especially for the UK. In America, their policy around this is even different. They target their very best. And their very best go to those American schools deliberately to acquire specialist skills, and then you see them pop up in policies and policy positions. So you can see a government that has put structure to the conversation. So I go back to that question. Is there anything we can do? And I'm saying, because I'm not the kind who will bash government or who will say, you know, we've not gotten it right and begin to stew over it. We still have time. This is a new visa. This is a new opportunity. Can we, in fact, appointments have not been made, and you just saw 18 trillion on the table. Can we be deliberate about it? What would be your suggestions around this?
Yes, we don't even have an option. We must be deliberate about it. And rather than allow people to just migrate, I will share with you an experience that a lot of Nigerians were aware of. Sometimes in 2016, I believe, we just suddenly saw Mark Zuckerberg at Sabo.
Yes.
Mark came to this country. He didn't go to see the governor. He didn't see the president in America. He went to Sabo in Lagos and was going from one cyber cafe to another room to go and see what exactly was going on. It means that right where he sits, he gets certain reports around certain level of activities going on in a place called Lagos, specifically around the place called Sabo. What is peculiar about Sabo? Sabo is cabled end-to-end, fiber. So a lot of IT-related issues were going on in that place. And that is of an attraction to someone like Mark Zuckerberg. So for us as Nigeria, the pointer right there is to say, look, we can be deliberate about creating a hub for IT. In fact, it doesn't have to be at the federal government level. If it is about a hub, a Lagos State could say, I want a technology hub. Create it right there. Make power available 24/7. Let it be cabled end-to-end, fiber all through. You know, that kind of a situation will start to churn out in numbers. Those kind of IT professionals that you want to see, and in those numbers we can export. And in exporting them, You see, when the government gets involved, and you are more or less those who have the request, they are even requesting through the government, and the government is making available people. There is no way that kind of a government will not make money from that kind of a structure. In fact, the referral fee alone that you can make available in that kind of situation is unimaginable. The other part is to be able to connect institutions with institutions on the two ends of the divide. So you have institutions, say in America, that are top class, are now known for something or the other. It could be a healthcare top class institution. You want to replicate that kind of a center of excellence even in Nigeria, to produce not just for Nigeria, but to also produce for export. When Americans were coming to recruit here in Nigeria IT professionals, it wasn't because IT professionals has finished where they were coming from. It was because it was slightly cheaper to come and do it here. And they still get the same value. These people, anybody who has hired foreigners know that some of them, they still pay taxes to their home country.
Yes.
On the income that they earn.
They earn here.
Yes. So we have an arrangement like that. They are our people. You have hired them. They earn income in your society. They still pay us some taxes. And we're good with that. So it will not only help us develop our internal markets for skills, it will also help us to be able to export and make money. Cuba produce a whole lot of doctors, for example. Philippines has been deliberate about healthcare workers' exportation in that country. And all these countries I'm talking about, they are making revenue. They have been deliberate about it, and they are making income beyond even remittances. Because while remittances are so huge and great, they are distributed. It is, most of them are individuals sending money to their wards. Of course, it still goes into the society. It still has its own multiplier effect. When people have more disposable income, to spend, they consume more and they help to get the economy bubbling. But beyond that individual distribution, you can now have government revenue that could go on to swell that miserable 10 trillion that we have as an entire nation as a revenue that we're looking at in a year. When smaller countries are getting like 4 times that revenue.
It's an eye-opener, because if you consider our revenue versus this is just 1 point opportunity, just 1 point, and we're struggling with revenue. I always say on this program there's a difference between knowing and understanding. So our people who are in charge will begin to understand these things and begin to know that we have to move from road well traveled, because I think Nigeria has traveled on a particular road for 30 years or upwards. Can we please move from road well traveled to road least traveled, and if possible, road never traveled? Again, listeners, I can see a lot of messages, but I'm trying not to be repetitive about them. I pick the ones that do not have any relationship with the ones I've read before. So you can reach us on 09092 1722973. In fact, a lot of people are saying this JAPA thing. In fact, a guy here, is it Jay? He said the foreign remittances is what is sustaining Nigerians. Withdraw that and you see revolution. No. What we want is revolution of ideas. I can see this guy from the UK. This is very interesting. There are a lot of sectors are there for Nigerians to enter in the UK and Europe and even in America. I, for one, have 2 master's degrees in Nigeria. I left banking for entrepreneurship. The economy went down on my head. I left for the UK, got certified in cyber security, and earn enough now to remit over £1,000. Man, you must be a big man in the UK. On monthly basis, £1,000.
That's a whole lot.
I would highly recommend JAPA for us to remit money home and grow the Nigerian.
This is what I'm saying.
That's what we're talking about. That's why we talked about 24 billion. And we're just talking about, listen, the remittances, India is doing $108 billion. So it's something we need to really talk about more and more. Now, I'm with Charles Gbolahan Olojede. Charles is a resourceful corporate executive with work experience spanning over 30 years. He's a consummate finance professional with extensive experience experience in industries spanning across banking, advisory services, media, education, healthcare, oil and gas. What are we saying here? Charles, now, this Jaqua thing is so intriguing. Let me leave a bit of let me leave India alone, because India is reflective. You know, if you want to talk about Nigeria and the path Nigeria should really follow in terms of development economics, we should mirror India, because our demographics are very peculiar and very similar to India. But let's move to China. How does India approach to the diaspora thing compared to China, for example?
China has a fairly different approach, which is why, despite the fact that for a long time China is a bigger country than India. Of course, now India has more population. For a long time, if you take America as an example, while it was the creme de la creme of the society of India, the wealthy, the upper class, the upper caste. India has a caste system that were migrating to America in the early years of the migration. It was slightly different for China. China has this, shall I call it, an internal pride about itself. And what it desires is to build the best for itself right there, while whatever it takes out there are not from the creme de la creme of its own society. So the president of Prime Minister of China, for example, would rather his children attend the top universities in China than go to Harvard. You know, so that's a totally different mentality from what you will see with an India or even a Nigerian. It is the reverse
in China.
That you see in China. So you don't have as many Chinese as you have Indians in America. You also don't have as many Chinese. In fact, it's far, there's a huge gap. In top executive level in American corporation as you will find Indians. Yes, because like I said, while Indians have exported, especially in the early days, the upper part of his own society, and these people had the best of education everywhere, that was different from what China did on a larger scale. But for us as Nigeria, I think there are lessons we can pick from both sides. We also have something in common with these guys. This population, huge population. Of course, they are way ahead of us when it comes to population. 1.4 billion to 200 million. You know, but like India did, can we be deliberate? I mean, JAPA is so close that, okay, I have also lived abroad. I did a bit of schooling abroad and came back home. My sister lives in Germany with her family. The brother that followed the sister jackpot to Canada, has been in Canada. About 2-3 weeks ago, my kid brother jackpot to the UK. So jackpot is close, so it's something we see.
You can feel it, you can touch it.
We can feel it, but we can touch it. And we, of course, from time to time, we are even part of the investment as well, because some of this money for this, money for that, you still have to provide it. But the reality is that Nigeria must begin to look inward and ask itself, why are they all leaving? So that we can address why they are leaving. Number two is to now be deliberate that those who are leaving, we don't want them to be living haphazardly. We don't want to be living, you know, without structures. You want to live, fine, but let's build a structure around it so that you can live and it can be of benefit to you as an individual. As you go out there, you acquire all the beautiful skills that you can even bring back home. At the same time, as you're living, we're also making some money. Look at that gentleman who lives. This is not even an unstructured situation. He said he sends home 1,000 pounds every month. He has been there, done that in Nigeria. He left. Of course, I know that he didn't settle immediately. He got there as well. But over the years, he has settled down. He has finished his training as a cybersecurity person. You know, that was starting a new life, actually. You know, and then he has started to earn. But
so that's good. Anyway, you know, there's brain drain, but there's also brain gain.
Correct.
Which is positive. Somebody's, you can see a counter JAPA phenomenon, and of course it's called brain drain. And if you go by WC reports, say there are currently over 200 IT startups in different parts of Nigeria earning USD by providing services to companies abroad. This is not some kind of attempt.
Correct.
A multiplication of these numbers will help develop our internal skills and forest revenues. So should we be doing more of this? Because it's not that what we've, put forward there by way of examples are non-existent in Nigeria. They are there. What you are saying is that we've not paid the kind of attention we should, considering the potentials this can bring.
Yes. As part of being deliberate about this, some years ago I was involved with an organization, a healthcare organization, and we hired doctors from UK and America back here to Nigeria. The biggest learning I got from that experience was that Nigerians love Nigeria. If they have their way, if you can provide them the right level of income, they would rather stay here than out there.
Okay.
Otherwise, what will explain people who are well paid, they live in UK, they live in America, some of them have been there for 15, 20 years, and they're still contemplating coming
back Nigeria.
Here.
Yeah.
After all the skills, after all the everything that they've acquired. They want to come back
as
home.
As bad as it is, as unsafe as it is, quote and unquote.
Yeah. And of course, we did hire a good number of them. In fact, when the contract was over, they want a renewal. So what that says to me is that if we provide this right environment, these people will come back. And that will be the brain gain that we are talking about. The reason most of them don't come back home is that they don't know what to come to. The things they would like to come to are not there. So anything that makes us provide those... See, most of the Nigerian news that I get every day, they are sent to me by my friends who live abroad. And I'm asking myself, I am the one here in Nigeria. I thought you would be bothered about what is going on where you are, but I found out that they are more bothered about what is going on in Nigeria. So there is that bond. It is there. I guess maybe it might be different for people who are born out there. But if you are born here, there is a part of you that will never depart, irrespective of where you decide to stay across the world. So where Nigeria is able to put the right things in place for these people to want to come back, a whole lot of them will come back to this country and serve and provide services and provide goods and provide entrepreneurship in Nigeria.
Okay, I get that, and it's good to hear that, and get that perspective. But Charles, you agree with me that focusing on remittances cannot provide all the... it provides cold comfort, if you ask me.
Not all the answers, yeah.
Well, because we need to develop the culture of resource mapping. And what do I mean? Do we really know who is leading? Do we know the gaps left? Who is leaving, and then do we know the gaps left? The exit of doctors, for example, is just topical in Nigeria because we see the obvious impact on our healthcare system. Even our rejected teachers, as a matter of fact, are of high demand abroad. Why is it so? Especially those who teach physics and chemistry and mathematics. So we should start. If we allow this to continue, because so that we don't just focus on remittances, just go. Bring back the money. If we don't arrest this hemorrhage, Nigeria will be in trouble, won't it be?
Very much so. One of the things I've seen about our society is the disconnect between what we produce and what we need as far as human resources is concerned. So for a long period, for example, in the oil and gas space, it was expat trade that was all over the whole place because the resources, human resources that were required as at then, we did not have the skill. I think over the years, that has improved significantly. But we still have a situation right now where what Nigeria needs, see, look at the growth of the fintech space.
Okay.
And you are asking yourself, how many universities in Nigeria are actually offering anything in fintech space? If you need fintech people, and you are producing graduates of religious studies, you are going to actually aggravate unemployment. Not because these people are not graduates, but because they are not what the industry,
it's not a fit.
It's not the skill that is fitting for employment. So they will always be there. So we have to be deliberate about connecting these gaps, like you mentioned. How many doctors do we need, for example? If we ask the Ministry of Health, can they tell us? How many are we going to need in 5-10 years?
Engineers.
These things are planning issues. It is when you know how many you're going to need, how many do I want to export? All those things can be planned. And it is when we plan it that we can reap the full benefit of the JAPA syndrome.
Fantastic. I'm happy we are coming back home, Nigeria, because I was deliberate. I took us to India, I took us to China.
And then we're back home.
Remember, we started with Nigeria. I'm going to bring you back home after the break, Charles. Please, we're going on break, listeners. Please hang in there. We are going to touch Nigeria proper in the next 10 minutes.
This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
Fantastic. Thanks, Charles. And now I come back to Nigeria because I want us to expand on Nigeria because of the impact this has had on our economy and different facets of life. You mentioned productivity there. So you are saying that it has huge impact and effect on this JAPA syndrome on our national productivity that I see. But let's even come down a little bit from just national. Let's look at our industries. Let's look at our multinationals. Let's look even our financial sectors. Is the reality of JAPA phenomenon, what is it doing to that human resource director? Though today they call them talent managers. What they must be in a higgledy-piggledy situation. What is it doing to that CEO? So how just please speak to that. What is it doing to them?
It's a helpless situation. Incidentally, I'm also a CEO, and I feel it even in my organization. There was a position, actually a couple of positions we were trying to recruit for. And for one of those, for that particular unit, we had one person there. Only for that one person. The one person resumed just a few months ago. Only for that one person to say he's going to Canada.
Just woke up and said,
literally for that particular unit, it's as if it is empty as it is. So we were trying to find more people before. Now the entire department is empty. We need to now go out and find. If it was 2, we were looking for 5. We now have to look for 3. And this is not peculiar. It is right across from banking to everywhere you turn. Those gaps are being created as these people are leaving. We have to be more deliberate about planning for this. As it is hurting. Imagine, some people said even part of what we suffered during the cashless policy was the fact that certain key IT resources have left the banking space. And there were a lot of reconciliation, a lot of IT-related issues going on during that period. It aggravated the suffering of Nigerians.
Wow.
So
it's incredible, Charles.
It's incredible.
There's a message here from the UK. This guy says, I left because of the light and security situation in Nigeria. As I speak to you, I want to come back. Many times I've packed my bag and I'm looking at the Heathrow. But when I think about the light situation and the security situation, I unpack my bag. So I want to come back to Nigeria, he's saying. But even if I decide to come back and I decide I want to work from home because of security and the light situation, how much would I be paying for data? And this is Larry from the UK, frustrated. Just like you mentioned, he said he's there. He's escaped, quote and unquote. He's jackward. He's followed the Osondu syndrome. But you can see he's suffering.
His mind is still connected to home.
To home, yeah.
I have a very good example of what he's talking about. There was a doctor, some years ago, they wanted to set up a facility in Taraba. He has been in the UK for over 15 years, an endoscopist. If you see the excitement about this facility that was coming up somewhere in Taraba, shortly before he decided, he and his friend, also another Nigerian, were meant to come and run that facility. Before they happened, there were certain killings in Taraba.
Wow.
That was the end of that transaction.
That's the security you talked about.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was, in fact, they've selected equipment that we were meant to, help them install and all of the rest. That was, they just changed their mind. The guy stopped talking to us because he canceled the trip. So insecurity This is one of the problems with modern economic planning. Everything is so integrated.
Yes.
If you focus on the silos and you're not looking at other things that are interconnected, you miss the point.
So we need a model for this. I don't know how much of football you know, Charles Olojede, but I see JAPA syndrome even in the football, because I'm following the transfer market, and I'm seeing that footballers in La Liga, EPL are all trooping to the Gulf, in specific terms now, Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Is this another JAPA syndrome? Is it a deliberate Saudi foreign policy plan?
It is a Saudi policy. Saudi wants a vibrant football world in the Middle East. And they are ready to pay for it. They're already paying for it.
Yes.
And everybody's just going there. Brazil have for several years had a policy of creating these players and exporting them. They export players in Brazil.
So it's deliberate.
Yes.
Yeah.
So anything that we have the competence or competitive advantage to produce, we can build structures around it and make it effective and revenue yielding and more rewarding.
Fantastic.
Than what we have right now.
Great, Charles. In fact, this topic again, I'm seeing a lot of messages here saying that, listen, health creation and management is not the only topic you have to do 2.0, that you need to bring back this resource to do a 2.0 on the JAPA syndrome. I will. Next week, by the way, we are going to deal with the Igbo apprenticeship scheme. What a topic, the Igbo apprenticeship scheme, so that we know the benefits. How has it helped Nigeria is a historical topic. So if you're out there, please write it down. Next Sunday, the Igbo apprenticeship scheme is going to be the topic of the day. Now, Charles, in all told, therefore, is JAPA phenomenon a blessing or a discourse? What is your final word on this before you take your Nigerian proverb or African proverb and your preferred music for Sunday?
JAPA syndrome is a blessing if we put structures around it. But if we don't and we allow our best to continue to live, it will be a curse unto the land. And for those who have left, one of the things that worked for India was the patriotism of India people. Wherever they find themselves, they never stop to think positively about India. Go and find, even here in Nigeria, when they come, that is what they do. Nigerians must do a bit more of that, even when they find themselves in those foreign lands.
Fantastic, Charles. Thank you very much. By the way, I should have started with my own quote of the day before Charles comes up with his proverb. My quote for the day is, mistakes are not costly. It is the lack of mistakes that are the true cost. I take it again. Mistakes are not costly. It is the lack of mistakes that are the true cost. Charles, I'm sure you're waiting to give us that Nigerian or African proverb.
Yeah, this is Chinua Achebe in Things Fall Apart. And he said, a man who calls his kinsmen to a feast does not do so to save them from starving. They all have food in their own houses. When we gather together in the moonlit village ground, it is not because of the moon. Every man can see it in his own compound. We come together because it is good for kinsmen to do so.
Fantastic. I'm sure you're able to process and digest that. And if you put that in context and relative to the conversations of the day, we are hoping that at some point, whether you've jacquard yesterday or you are planning to do that, at some point you will meet over a feast, like Chinua Achebe said. Charles, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Again, let me repeat. Next week, we are going to deal with the Igbo apprenticeship scheme. I'm told it's a big conversation now at Harvard Business School and other top business schools across Europe. So next week, I'm going to hold back on the guest, but it's going to be the type and the name that will blow you away. Thank you very much for listening. I'm very sure you're going to enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Goodbye and see you. Have a blessed week ahead.
And that's it on The Discourse with Dr. Ken.